Alright, Fede, this is a video private to you. Nobody else should watch this video. I don't know how to make videos private. But, Fede to you. Okay. Okay, anyway. Fede. I had notes and everything to make another video, but it's almost when I pay close attention to a video, then it's harder sometimes to make, because if the opportunity is missed. So, I think that's fine. In this case, I'll just take, having let everything settle. I mean, first of all, I will say that, and I might not say this again, I'm very interested in communication and how communication works. The grain of truth in my rhetoric is that, I have limits to how far I'm going to take it. I see that a lot of times people think they understand each other and don't. They're really going for a little feeling like, or some feeling, some one of those little feelings that, that they associate with understanding. Like they go, aha. But I don't think you go aha because you understand the other person. You go aha because you have an idea that you've decided to associate, click, and so you've done that in your little software brain. Doesn't mean you did it right, okay? And I think people do that wrong a lot of times. So, so my rhetoric in the way I present have presented so far my YouTube channel has to do with that. And and Nietzsche, as crazy as he has some interesting things to say about little aspects of philosophy and logic. And he said a couple things that informed the way I develop my online presentations, okay, which is that one, he said that that he couldn't really tell his readers things. Basically, for the reader to get his idea, it must have been on the tip of their tongue. Now, he could maybe put it to words like an artist, but the person's going aha about something they had already that they couldn't quite put words on. He put words on it. And you go, wow, he's really smart. Look what he taught me. Something you already learned, but you couldn't quite put words on it. And as soon as you put words on it, you get more control of it. You can use it in your life more, efficiently. That's what the words do. They help us move ideas around, tractor beams for ideas. Okay, and then the other thing he said was, he just, he thought it was better to be confusing. That in the cloud of confusion and people have to use all their senses and they have to think harder. And since, and that might provoke them, this is my interpretation of what the results is, into acts of construction. Right, which is that's the closest you can get to giving an idea to somebody, is show them how to build it for themselves. It's like I'm in a glass bubble and you're in a glass bubble and I make a clock and I'm like, look, here's a clock. And we're always going, yeah, scribble, scribble, and look, I've got a clock. And that's shit, what's it do? It's a piece of paper. No, you use wood, and I'm trying to communicate, and I have to tell you, because of our circumstance, how to reconstruct something. Okay, and confusion is better for that. Think about it. If you're a theist, and then you give up your theism because, something, maybe a crisis or your church was corrupt or whatever, breaks your faith finally from your point of view. Again, it's going to be a long series of things, and then when it becomes conscious, you often just credit this part, not the whole life that led to it. But let's just assume this stuff goes back, right? And so, let's say you give up your theism because of this, and you're confused what to believe in. You see, that's a positive state in the sense that it's a part of the cure to your theism, that everything shatters and you get to rebuild. All the Lego castle is broken up into little Lego bits, and yeah, it's like, what do you mean I got a lot of building to? Yeah, that's a good thing. Okay, and I think confusion is an important force to help people learn about doubt, which doubt is important and people totally misunderstand it. And there's an etymological story to why people misunderstand it. It's because, not because, but that shows how people have misunderstood it, not why necessarily, but I think, it hints to that. Anyway, not to get too esoteric. Okay. The word skepticism itself means doubting, right? Well, that's not what it really means. It originally means to reflect, as in to ponder You know, skepticism is a belief that you can always reflect on things more. You always can. It doesn't mean you have to reflect again. You're a mortal being. There's logical reasons to limit how much time you give yourself to reflect. But if you stop, you've decided where to stop. You have to take responsibility, you know. And it leads to things like measuring the unknown in the form of error bars and estimating error and stuff like you see in the physical sciences. So, that term of reflecting, and a Greek school of philosophy that named itself reflectionism, we have learned that reflectionism is to doubt. Now, does that make sense? To continue to reflect, what does that have to do with doubting? Right? Can't you reflect and confirm something? Yes, you can. Right? What it has to do with doubt is that the dogmatists of all sorts, from Stoics to Pythagoreans, to some degree their dogmatic parts, is saying there's certain things you don't need to reflect about anymore. So like the Pythagoreans are like, you need to reflect on the ideal world which is shown through mathematics and geometry, right? However you want to put that. Right? They continued to reflect, but they specialized. They're like, we know this is the fundament, and they were dogmatic on that, you know. Christians had a bunch of rules because they had a bunch of rules listed, you know, like the command order on a plantation, you know. And so any reflection almost comes into conflict with the Bible on certain interpretations. Of course, the priest could get away with reflection by pondering the Bible, reflecting on the words of the Bible. What does it really mean? What does it really mean? What does it really mean? Right, so there's always room for reflection. You have to have reflection to survive and think, right? But skepticism's all about, look, everything is open to reflection. Everything, ultimately. Doesn't mean there's not things you assent to. Pyrrho said that. Reflectionism doesn't mean, look, I've reflected on this for 5 years and I have the same opinion. I'm going to act on it. It's time to make a decision. You know, there's action is required in real time, so you have a finite amount of time. Just because in principle you could keep reflecting forever, well, you're going to die. So in fact, you're not going to reflect forever. Possibly. No. Okay. So, I want to convey an idea that it's such a fundamental level. And it's not like I discovered this territory. I've told this story many times, but when I was a teenager, I thought I had discovered it. I thought I'd abstracted it from the physical sciences. And then I discovered in philosophy, the history of philosophy, I guess I should say, the skepticism, which is like 90% of what I had discovered. Now, what it lacks is it's 2,000 years old, and so you can build knowledge on top of a skeptical epistemology, right? So Pyrrho didn't have the full epistemology I have, but that bottom level of where you're starting, basically the things like I say that everything starts from perception, this leads to certain logical, you know, arguments at an epistemological level about how things are built up and what perspective relativism is all about, and the fact that we got a material relativism so intensely. And I'd say there's a kind of material relativism in quantum mechanics as well. So it's like a very ubiquitous theme of relativism in human cognitive logic, in the physics of reality. Now maybe that's a projection of our human cognitive logic. Of course, we can reflect on that more. But there's certainly a big confirmation beyond what, you know, the original Pyrrho would have thought, to this idea that you can always continue to reflect, that there's even unknowability, you know, and the society simply called that doubting. So now I'm trying to change this back so that it's understood that skepticism is a way of thinking about things. It's a way of there's certain, obviously, in any school of logic, there are certain techniques for reflecting on things, right? And because it starts from perceptions, it's actually has a modern parallelism to it, right? We have a language in computer information sciences that comes from the fact that this is what we do. We take perceptions, we data process, we generate actions. Okay. Right? Or reactions, you could call them. Fair enough? So, the logical tools of reflectionism is about that. It's about that as long as you're living, you can't help but continue to reflect. When you think you're just remembering, actually you're reflecting on this neural network that regenerates simulated experiences which hopefully bear some resemblance to reality, and we know they don't have to. Okay, so it's within this complex dynamic that I'm trying to communicate. And if people think there's a thing and it's got properties, and I think, well, we don't know anything about the thing, let's reserve judgment, and all we know is these properties, and those properties are actually relationships, and it's totally wrong to say properties are inherent in a thing when the property is actually a relationship. That's the opposite of inherent. So I'm saying switch around, stop thinking about things and their properties and start thinking about relationships and their implications about the thing. Right? Relationships give boundaries on the thing. If two things bump into together, then there is a boundary on the thing that it's locatable in a particular space. Right? And so on and so forth. Every interaction creates a boundary on each of these things. So I'm all fine with the word thing. I think, first of all, it refers to the data structure in the mind. But the data structure in the mind is meant to relate something at one end of a relationship. And we surround that with its relationship to a bunch of things, like a bunch of senses, so to us in a bunch of different ways, so we can surround it sort of and bound it enough for purposes of us making an action. And ancient skepticism is really that practical way, and to me it seems very simple and straightforward. But I remember being very confused by it. I remember being confused by questions like, what is reality? And to say that is going to sound arrogant to people who are saying, oh, he thinks he knows the answer to what reality is. No, I'm saying I understand the question a lot better. I understand it in a skeptical terms. I understand that the question is always going to be there. It's a very general purpose question. And if you want to get, involved with answering it, you're going to have to zero down, well, where are we? Like right now in various fields, even spiritual and everybody's personal theories and stuff, but also science and psychology, there's theories about how this stuff works. In materialism, we have a theory about neurons and everything like this. Okay. All right.